A warm welcome to another edition of the Magpie Circle, and we are going back a couple of decades to a man who at the time was probably, though we wouldn't automatically associate this with him, one of Notts' longest serving players during a very turbulent period at the turn of the millennium. 194 appearances, 6 goals. Paul Bolland, welcome to the Magpie Circle.
Hi, Paul. Thank you for having me on.
Delighted. You know what you're in for, don't you? Because you've done a bit of prep, and we've had the likes of some of your old teammates, Mark Stallard, Kevin Nicholson, Ian Barraclough, his shirt behind us.
I've got a big act to follow for some of those.
Well, you were here. You were actually here longer than all of them, nearly 200 appearances. In fact, it was the longest stint of your career at any one club, wasn't it? You came from Bradford. You had a good stint at Grimsby. You did a bit of work at Harrogate. Not that we like to mention Harrogate too much. I'm not sure we've fully got over losing out in that playoff. But take us back, Paul. Well, firstly, there are actually quite a few educated men in the team of that era, because Stells is fairly bright, isn't he?
Incredibly bright.
I think Stells, you even entrust Stells to look after some of your money, don't you? That's a brave
he's the one. Usually when I'm in a bit of trouble, I'll pick up the phone and ring Stall for a bit of a financial support or encouragement. Yeah, but no, Stells looked after my finances for a number of years. He's a great guy. Not only was he a good player, but he's a great guy, as I'm sure a lot of the Notts faithful will back up as well.
Did you go back to Bradford with him?
So Stall will have been in Bradford's first team when I was just coming through the youth system there. So I remember, I think when Notts lost out to Bradford, I think in the playoff final, I believe I may have just been coming into the youth team at that point. So yeah, fun memories. But I mean, Notts County was, I was there 6 years, and it was. I look back, with some fond memories of not only the club but the city. My eldest daughter was born in Queen's Medical Centre, so I've got some real good memories from Notts. Had some good times on a roller coaster journey throughout the 6 years. I think I went through about 6 managers. And it was ups and downs, but met some great people along the way, and some very good players as well.
We'll be diving into that from elephants walking down a street on a pre-season tour of Thailand and Brunei. We think you were in the nightclub the night before Sam Allardyce handed in his resignation. I know Sam had put a 3-line whip on every player to be there, so we'll put it down to bad.
I've never been good at drinking, Paul. I can't remember.
You either had too much to drink, or you just got a bad memory naturally. We'll talk about some of the managers you played under, but I guess Notts was kind of played a part in your formative years, didn't you? Because you were a local boy in Bradford. You're playing for your local club. And you then get to that point in your career where you have to make a decision about leaving your first club and leaving your hometown.
Yeah, it was a big decision, but the right decision at the time. I'd been Bradford, my hometown club. I'd come through the academy there, the youth systems from the age of 10, all the way up to being an apprentice when Chris Kamara was in charge of the first team when I just began my apprenticeship. And great memories, great years, learning my trade at Bradford. I was fortunate enough to be given a 2-year pro contract at the age of 18. And I think that coincided with Chris Kamara moving on. And I think Paul Jewell stepped in as manager at that point, because it was Paul Jewell who gave me my debut at the age of 18. It was away at the Riverside at Middlesbrough. It was a sellout, packed house. I was terrified, the nerves were kicking in, but yeah, really good memories. So Paul Jewell gave me my debut at 18, and I made a handful. I think I made half a dozen appearances, something like that. But I was competing against the likes of Stuart McCall, Robbie Blake, Craig Ramage, some big players at Bradford at the time. They were Championship, just below the Premiership. And I think they actually went on to get promoted to the Premiership the season I left to go to Notts County. I think it was around. So I signed for Notts in January, I think, on an initial 3-month loan or something like that under Sam Allardyce. And then at the end of the 3-month loan, around April time, I think that's when I put pen to paper on a contract, a 3-year contract. It was.
You came to Notts the season after the all-conquering team that won promotion broke a variety of club records. Found it a little more difficult having stepped up. Now, Sam's a direct kind of guy. What did Sam say to you when he was bringing you in, and how did he need to sell the club, or what did he say to you?
Not really. I mean, at the time, it was. I remember the conversation with Paul Jewell from Bradford, and I was at the crossroads in my career as a young player where I think I was playing Pontins League reserve football. I don't know if you remember the Pontins League.
I remember the Central League. I remember Notts County in the North Midlands League. That is going back a long time. But
I remember the old Pontins League. So I was getting some good experience in the Pontins League, and obviously playing against some good players. But there comes a stage in your career where you want to go and test yourself and challenge yourself and find out whether you are good enough to make it as a first team player. And I'd had a taste at Bradford, like I said, half a dozen games. But the time was right for me to grow up as a player and find out about myself. So when Paul Jewell said, Sam's been in touch, initially on loan, he wants to have a look at you. For me, it was a case of, let's go play some first team football. Let's, try and help Notts, but also gain some experience and to mature as a player, which I definitely did when I came down to Notts, because I had to move away from home for the first time. I had to find accommodation, settle into a new city. So not only did I grow up as a player, but I massively had to grow up quickly as a person, as an individual as well. Being in a completely strange city, having to find rented accommodation. It was exciting times, and I loved every minute of it. I remember my first game for Sam was Bournemouth away in January, and I think we drew 1-1. But yeah, it was the right time to move on. It was because I was reserves at best at Bradford, and I don't think I was ever going to push with the standard they were at Championship. Pushing for the Premiership. It was going to be really difficult to secure a first team place there. So the time was right to move on and to find out about myself, and Notts came calling, and I was delighted to kind of get down there and yeah, that was 6 years. I don't know if that was a good thing or a bad thing for some fans, but yeah. So
towards the end of the season, there's the opportunity to make a permanent move. Derek Pavis raids his piggy bank, which he kept the shutters on that a lot of the time. 75 grand. Sam must have thought you were decent, and Derek, well, more importantly, Derek must have thought you were decent, because Derek and Sam didn't always see eye to eye on things.
75k, but a lot of money back in the day. But yeah, I mean, I suppose I was a young player from Bradford who were top end of the Championship at the time. So yes, I was unproven, and I didn't have the games under my belt, but I'm presuming that Sam kind of had a sit down with Derek and just said, this lad's got a bit of potential, and let's obviously caught Derek on a good day. Not sure how often he had those good days, but yeah, caught him on a good day, and he managed to get him to part with his cash.
6 managers. So Sam Allardyce, where do you rate him in not just the Notts managers, but all the various managers you will have played under? Was he someone at that point you thought instantly would go a long way up the ladder?
Yes, I thought he was up there with one of the best. When I look back on my time with Sam, people have asked me this numerous times. What was he like as a manager? And the first word that comes into mind is respect. He just commanded respect as a manager, as an individual, and he was a huge figure. Almost, you weren't scared of him, but you knew what your role was, and you knew that if you didn't perform, then you'd soon be out of the team. But on the flip side of that, he wanted you to do it with a smile on your face. He wanted you to socialise with with the squad, and not only with the squad, with the staff as well, because he was there with you. He would happily, have a drink with you on an evening or a weekend after a game, whenever it may be. And he was a firm believer in that unity and that togetherness and work hard, play hard mentality. And I'm a big fan of that. I'm a big fan of not saying go out and get drunk every weekend or wherever, but that togetherness and that unity is something that Sam was a big believer in. And you kind of put the work in on the pitch, knowing that you had a good tight knit group off the pitch as well, which is what Sam wanted.
Proof's in the pudding. You started very well that season, didn't you? As in from August before Sam left. I presume he'd worked you pretty hard pre-season, because other players we've had on the show, Barra, Kev Nichol, Mark Stallard, you were put through your paces, weren't you? Creatine, there were some of the that. He was an early adopter of some of those practices, wasn't he?
He was, and I think that's where obviously he moved on to Bolton, and I think he was quite famous for the way he used science and brought science into the dressing room and into the football club. He was one of the first managers to exploit, the advantages of sports science, if you like. And there wasn't as much of that at Notts from my memory, but I think that's where he probably started to think about how can we gain an advantage. How can we what kind of areas can we exploit to kind of improve our performance, and from moving on from Notts, he went on to Bolton, and he had God knows how many staff with him there doing all the jobs and all the sports science team behind him. But yeah, it was very successful for him as he moved on to Bolton, and then obviously to other clubs, and ultimately he was England manager, wasn't he, for a short period. But yeah, he's been very, very successful as a manager, good at what he does. Obviously, he's got a bit of a label now in terms of a rescue manager. He's very organised. He gets players in who he can trust, and he knows that those players will do a job for him. And I think, it's probably not like the modern day manager, like the Peps of this world, but he knows how to get results. He knows how to win football matches, and I think that's why he's been employed numerous times by Premier League teams and top Championship teams.
Well, he's not the only one that went on to be an international manager, because one of your teammates was Ian Barraclough, and of course Ian, friend of the show, friend of mine, manager of Northern Ireland. What was Barra like? Did you have him down as manager material when he was a teammate?
I certainly wouldn't have put it past him, because when I was a young player at Notts, Barra was someone I looked up to as a senior pro, if you like. Had been there, also played at a decent level, been at some good clubs, and he was a pro. When I joined Notts, I was 19, I believe at the time, 18, 19. And there was Barra, and he was a senior figure in the dressing room. And he was, I believe he was like PFA rep at one point, and he was the go-between between some of the young players and obviously Sam and other managers that were there at the time. But you need that in every dressing room, and he wasn't the only experienced player. Looking back, there was people like Stall, Gary Hours, Rico, Ian Richardson, just experienced good pros, who you could kind of, if you needed any help or support as a young player, then you could turn to them and they'd be more than happy to help out. So yeah, Barra, a good pro, and he had an unbelievable playing career. I think he played till 37, did he? 37, yeah. 38.
I think about 600 appearances. I think he got in at the end.
Yeah, which in this day and age takes not only dedication but discipline within yourself, looking after your own body and things like that. And then I think it was Scunthorpe where he finished his career. He's obviously gone into a bit of coaching, and he's enjoyed the first taste of coaching and management that he's got. And yeah, he's obviously at the peak of his management career, isn't he? International management, he's doing fantastically well. So,
were you allowed into the golf school at Notts? Because obviously Barrow was telling us he got hole in one at one place. But were you allowed? Were you a golfer? Were you allowed into that one? Or
yeah,
not?
I mean, I would have thought I would have been allowed if they used to play at Cotgrave, but I wasn't. Unfortunately, the handicap only goes to 28, Paul. So I'm not. I think I would have held the likes of Barron and Nico and Nick Fenton and put people like that. I think I would have slowed them down a bit. But no, there was a golfing school there, and I think they played at Cotgrave just up the road. But yeah, my golf. I think crazy golf's as good as it gets for me.
Well, so you spoke about being a teenager moving into a new city. So did you have digs with any of the other players? Did you go in? Whereabouts in Nottingham became inverted commas home? You mentioned one of your children was born in Nottingham, so presumably you settled down with your good lady at some point in Nottingham. But what was it like?
So initially I was doing a bit of commuting from Bradford whilst I was looking for property, and I remember it quite well actually. It was a tiny flat in Wollerton, just opposite Wollerton Park. It was like a 1-bedroom flat. It was a shared kitchen, 1-bedroom flat, shared kitchen, and I stayed there probably 3 nights a week, something like that, just to break the journey up, or before a game, things like that. So I did a bit of commuting and stayed in this 1-bedroom flat with a shared kitchen. So that was an eye opener at the age of 19, making beans on toast for pre-match every week with somebody looking over your shoulder. But yeah, so Wollerton, so that was my first rented property. And to be honest, I had a few. I think I ended up I upgraded to Gamston, West Bridgeford, Gamston area. Yeah, we upgraded to there after about a year or so, which is a beautiful area. And then my family my good lady at the time moved down with me. We settled down in Nottingham, and we really committed to the city and to the club. At that point, I'd signed a 3-year contract, so we had a bit of stability. Well, this was before the administration kicked in, but we had a bit of stability at the time. So, and then in years to come, I stayed at Burton Joyce, had another rented accommodation in Burton Joyce.
Yeah, Burton Joyce is nice, not far from me. Burton Joyce is nice. Yeah. And
then eventually we committed to buying in Notts out in Bingham, just out towards Newark. And that became the family home. And that's where my eldest daughter was born. She was born at the Queen's Medical Centre. So she's now, oh my goodness, she's just done her GCSEs. So she's just finished year 11. So turning 16 in a couple of weeks. Yeah. So she was born at Queen's Medical Centre. We set up home, bought a house in Bingham. And love the city. Love the city. Great, really good memories.
So Sam was your first of, I've got it down as 6 managers. Sam, the delightfully named, well, you couldn't make it up, could you? Jockey Scott, Gary Brazil, Billy Deard, and Gary Mills, Ian Richardson. So, as we spoke about before, I mean, you did 6.5 seasons, and that is a long time at a period that was extremely turbulent in every sense of the word of the club's history, fighting relegations, and record periods of administration, cup games against Chelsea, couldn't told not to swap shirts, unless you were Nico, obviously. I'm sure we can come to that in a minute. When you look back on it now, what was it like? Was it difficult to keep a level head, or were you kind of one of these people that just love living the dream of playing professional football?
To be honest, it was a bit of a whirlwind. It was a real turbulent time throughout the 6 years, and it's not until you look back and think, wow, I had 6 managers, over a 6-year period, and it was such a turbulent roller coaster time over the years. And I was a young kid at the time. I was 19. Learning my trade, so to speak, learning from some of the senior pros in the dressing room. And I think when you're paid to do what you love and you're a professional, I think all your focus is just playing on a Saturday or a Tuesday, and your focus is just playing as best you can and hoping to get the results for Notts County. That is ultimately what you're paid to do. Having said that, I think the emotion that goes along with that, in terms of the instability of finances, the administration when that kicked in, and a new manager's coming in, and will he play me? Will he like me? What's going to happen? Will he try and move me on to a new club? It is unsettling, and especially when you've moved your family down to the area. But I think you quickly have to accept as a professional footballer that that's part of the business, and it's a ruthless industry, and you have to take the rough with the smooth. But the love of playing and training every day is what gets you through. And, you know, you're kicking a ball about and you're getting paid to do what you love to do. So I think that's what gets you through. It's that desire to prove people wrong, to prove that you are a first team regular, to prove that you are worthy of a new contract. And I think that's all I did. I think when a new manager came in, I saw it as a challenge, you know, to impress, to show the manager that I'm going to be first name on the team sheet, and you know, to show that I am a good player and I want to stay at Notts County Football Club, and ultimately that was the drive and the challenge every time a new manager came in.
So as managers changed around a little bit, Derek Pavis, the owner, was trying to sell, and clearly he found it very difficult to sell to the right people. Albert Scardino, part of an American style consortium, were one of the bidders that bought it, couldn't complete the sale, etc. Ultimately, this was to lead the club into a pretty long period of administration. So as a young man, what was all of that like?
Yeah, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't concerned, I wasn't worried, because naturally I think you are. You know, we're all human beings. It was an unsettling time. You know, when you need to put food on the table, and when you've got families and mortgages to pay. You know, when there's financial kind of concerns at the football club in terms of are the new owners going to take over? Is it going to be a positive outlook for the future? You know, how long is the administration going to drag on for? As much as every player will say, "Oh no, we put it behind us and we're looking forward to the game on Saturday," you know, naturally it's going to have an effect and it's going to catch up with you at some point. We were professionals, and I think once the game started, there was no thought of administration or anything like that. But you know, when you go back home to your families and you're discussing finances, it does have an impact, and it does make you think, you know, what's going to happen, you know, in a few months or at the end of the season. But you know that you have to accept it, because you know what are the alternatives? You have to knuckle down. You have to stay strong for the team, for your teammates around you. But more importantly for your family, you know, that reassurance that everything will be okay. And thankfully I managed to stay there through some tough times, you know, for 6 years. And I think I look back on my time, or the 6 years at Notts, with not so much regret, but kind of frustration that I didn't play more games. You know, I look back and I think I had a few niggly injuries, not serious injuries, but just injuries that kind of kept me out for 5-10 games at a time, which kind of disrupted my kind of progress, if you like, at the club. I think I had some good moments and probably some not low moments, but probably injuries have kind of, you know, stopped me from kind of probably reaching the heights that, you know, I should have done, you know, given the signing on fee and the kind of you know, the expectation from coming from a championship club from Bradford. You know, it started well. But when I look back, I'm probably a little bit disappointed. I mean, I've got some great, you know, so I got 190 odd appearances, you know, which is incredible, and you know, I'm very, very lucky and privileged to have done that. But I just think, and this is me as an individual, as a person, I push for, you know, I'm a bit of a perfectionist, and I kind of want to push myself all the time. And so I look back and I think, yeah, I could have had a few more goals, a few more appearances, and you know, who knows where that takes you. But again, as a young player, you don't know how you deal with these situations, and it's easy to look back on now as an experienced pro. But at the time, I had to grow up quickly as a player and as a person, you know, being away from home and obviously with the financial struggles as well. But I'd like to think I'm a better person for coming through that experience. And when I speak to people about, you know, my time at Notts, it certainly made me a better player and a better person for coming through that 6-year period.
One bit of brief respite, or I suppose a bit of an escape from reality, was a rather bizarre pre-season trip. We've spoken with Stells a little bit about this. When you went to Thailand and to Brunei. Yeah, and I think you were just recounting before we started recording. The trip was an eye opener, and in particular, sort of the huge discrepancy in opulence and poverty. 100 yards outside the team hotel in Bangkok. Yeah,
it was incredible. To this day, I still think it was probably one of the best, one of the most outrageous trips I've ever been on in terms of just such an eye-opening experience. I can't remember which year it was, actually. I don't know whether it was when Scardino had just taken charge of Peter Story, or whether I can't remember exactly when it was. But yeah, we flew out to Bangkok and Brunei for, I think it was 2 weeks. I think we did like 10 nights in Bangkok, and then we flew out to Brunei for like four nights to play a game over there. And it was it was such a good experience. So Bangkok, it was, not only did we have the heat to contend with, but we were in this incredible 5-star hotel right in the heart of Bangkok, opposite all the famous markets and what have you. The heat and the pollution was out of this world, and you literally stepped out of this hotel, onto the streets of Bangkok, and there'd be the poverty was just, it was alarming, right? That you had young children begging you for money. There was elephants walking past you in front of you in the street. There was a McDonald's on the corner, and then you look behind you and you had this 5-star hotel, and it was a brilliant experience. And I suppose what it did at the time is it helped us to bond together as a team, as a squad. Like we discussed earlier with Sam, in terms of work hard, play hard. We knew we were out there to get incredibly fit, and to put the hard yards in on the training pitch, which we did. But it was also about kind of relaxing as well, and gelling together as a team off the pitch, which we did. We just had to watch out for the elephants walking past us. But it's good.
And I guess also football is always highs and lows. You're battling for every penny. Supporters are running all sorts of various funds to secure a deposit to persuade the administrator to complete a sale. And whoever's drawing the League Cup balls out did you all a favour. Chelsea away, yeah. And you were kind of ordered, weren't you, not to swap shirts, correct?
Yeah, that is correct. Yeah, that's correct. So it was I think it was Stamford Bridge, Chelsea away.
Yeah.
I think it was I think Jose Mourinho might have been manager at the time.
They had a lot of big names. They had the likes of Crespo and all of those.
They had Hasselbank. They had Joe Cole. Sebastian Veron was playing. And I remember, so I was actually sub. I started on the bench that night, and I came on for the last 5 minutes. I think I may have touched the ball once, something like that. Tried to get close to Joe Cole and Veron, which was not an easy thing. But yeah, the club were going through a tough time, and we were ordered not to. We couldn't swap shirts at the end of the game. We were told, non-certainties, you can't swap shirts. And I think Chelsea were aware of this. They were aware how desperate we were to get somebody's shirt. And I think that just goes to show you the depth that the club were, the troubles that the club were in at the time, to try and raise every penny, and for the right reasons as well. But as a player, I was desperate just to say to Veron, just to give him a little tap on his shoulder and just say, any chance of your shirt. But I think, if I remember rightly, they sent a second set of shirts up, not the official match shirts, but like, from the club shop or something with the names on. And we had a lucky dip, like a lucky draw in the changing rooms. So we all did. In the end, we managed to get a shirt. It wasn't the match shirt that Chelsea players wore on the night, but we had a lucky dip. It was like a week later or something like that. And fair play to Chelsea for sending a second set of shirts up. So I wander over to the middle of the dressing room at Meadow Lane in the changing room, and reached to the bottom, pulled Robert Huth out, didn't I? Robert Huth.
Well, at least it'd fit, be about the same size, because all the shirts they were just huge. They were like tents, weren't they? Yeah. Every shirt, you'd have had all these behind us. I mean,
Yeah.
they're massive shirts.
Yeah, they probably fit quite nicely now, but yeah, at the time it was the baggy style, wasn't it? But yeah, I managed to get Robert Huth's shirt, so I've still got that in a bedroom somewhere in a bag. I've not quite put it in a frame yet, but yeah, Robert Huth. I was hoping for one of the big names, but we managed to get his shirt. Yeah,
that's good. That's good. Great Escape season. Do you remember much of that? Nico obviously remembers.
I do, but probably not for the right reasons. I remember obviously all the positive energy behind the fans and the media in terms of, you know, we can do this, which was brilliant. But the Huddersfield game, so last game of the season, again, common theme. I was sub. I came on from the bench. So it was one of like I say, ups and downs. But I came off. I think I came off the bench with about 20 minutes to go, and I think we were winning 2-0 at the time.
Yeah.
Because I think Nico scored the second goal, didn't he?
Yeah.
He's probably told you
down
about.
the length of the pitch, didn't he? Yeah.
Yeah. Great goal. Really good goal. And I came on with 20 minutes to go, and there was about 16,000 at Meadow Lane. Really good atmosphere. Really good occasion. And we were cruising to victory, 2-0. And then I came on, and I just remember giving a penalty away in like the 85th minute.
You got the penalty away, did you?
I'm sure, yeah. If I remember rightly, I don't know if there's any video footage of it, but I was the one who committed the foul in the penalty area to give Huddersfield a chance to get back in the game, which they did. They scored the penalty, and I'm thinking, oh, here we go. You know, my name's gonna be mud for the next few years, because obviously they had the bit between the teeth. They had the momentum. I was thinking, if they get another goal here, like, I'm just gonna, you know, just run a mile or want the ground to kind of swallow me up. Thankfully we saw the game out and we won 2-1. But yeah, I was a little bit nervous there towards the end of that game. But
yeah, I noticed on the stats, your last 2 seasons, you hardly missed a game. You played the best part of 100 games, you know, league and cup. You know, so you were certainly churning the matches out, and of course, ironically, after 100 games in 2 seasons, you move on. I mean, was there much of a story there, or
not really? I think
rated you because you were playing basically every game.
Yeah. So like I said to you earlier, I after the loan period, I ended up signing 2 3-year contracts, and I think the first 3-year contract, I was delighted with it, but I think I didn't let my standards drop, but I kind of had a few niggling injuries, and then you get stuck in a bit of a rut sometimes, and then I kind of, new managers have come in, as they did over the years, signed another 3-year contract, and I think towards the end of my time at Notts, like you were just saying there, I kind of had a consistent run of games. I think I just matured as a player. I was more experienced. Probably enjoying my football a lot more. If I remember rightly, I became a bit more versatile in terms of, I remember playing a few games at fullback and you know, maybe at the back or wide right, something like that. So I became a bit more flexible, wasn't just pigeonholed to central midfield. But yeah, I think that just coincided with me being more mature as a player. You know, been through some of the tough times that we had over the years. But yeah, I kind of and you know, it's like once you get a run of games and you're doing okay and you're winning a few football matches, that breeds confidence, and confidence in a footballer is massive. It's absolutely huge. And that you know, I can only presume that those last 2 years were you know, times where I felt more confident and I was enjoying my football.
Different managers. Any particular recollections of them, strengths or amusing thoughts? Or so you started off with Sam, Jockey Scott, Gary Brazil, Billy Dearden, who I think was very popular, kind of bore the real brunt of the administration. It kind of wore him down, I think, by the end.
Yeah.
Gary Mills and Ian Richardson.
Yeah, I mean, all you know, good in their own right, brought different things to the table. You know, talking about Billy Dearden there, he was just a great man manager. He was just a good person. You know, great guy, experienced football manager. Yeah, he used to with his dodgy knee, he used to join in the shooting sessions at the training ground and show us how to do it. But yeah, it's some good memories of Billy Dearden. Funny guy, good character, and he just made you relax and enjoy your football. Yeah, I can't remember too much about the others. Obviously, Gary Brazil and who else was it? Gary Mills. Obviously, good footballing coaches. Wanted to play good style of football, get it down and pass. And play football in an attractive manner. And then I think Rico came in my very last season.
Yeah, it was a firefighting job to an extent.
He was kind of just getting us through, and I'm not sure, he would have wanted to go and have a career as a manager, but he did a good job at the time, and I think that just shows the respect that he had at the football club, the fact that he took on the reins. And I believe, I think when it comes towards the end of my Knox career, I think I did okay. I think some of the fans were, appreciated what I brought to the table in terms of, my energy and never say die attitude and things like that. And others were probably ready for some fresh faces. And I feel personally it was ready for me to move on. I think it was good John Torderson that came in just after Ian Richardson. But me personally, it was time for me to move on. A fresh challenge, just something to get me going again. When you've kind of been at a place for a long time, and I just felt like a fresh change would do me the world of good. Which it did. I remember at the time it was a decision between Peterborough under Barry Fry. I remember having a conversation with him, or Russell Slade up at Grimsby.
Yeah.
And being a northern lad, as you can tell from my accent, I was desperate to get back up north, if you like, and that coincided with the birth of my eldest daughter as well. So there was a little bit of that behind the decision as well, wanting to be closer to family and to Yorkshire. So obviously Peterborough was a lot further south. So yeah, Russell Slade, I agreed to go up there with Grimsby, and that turned out to be quite a successful 4-year spell, if I'm being honest. Russell Slade, another good manager, another good man manager, and I enjoyed my time at Grimsby. Yeah, I think I ended up staying there 4 years, and got to 2 finals there. We lost out in my first year under Russell Slade, we lost out in the playoff final to Cheltenham at the Millennium, which was disappointing. I think we'd been in the top 2 all season, and then we just dropped out in the final game of the season against Northampton. They equalised in the dying seconds, so we were in the playoffs, got through to the final, and Cheltenham did us at the Millennium, which was, it's not a nice place to be when you lose any final. And then Alan Buckley, 2008, he got us to Wembley in the Johnston's Paint Trophy, the JPT, and again we lost out to MK Dons, but that was at the new Wembley. The new Wembley had just been built. So some good memories of Grimsby, but I think when towards the end of my time at Notts, it was a real good experience, and a real, that's where my family started, and that's where I certainly grew up as a person and a player, and met some great people and some good players as well. I look back, and some of the talent within the teams throughout the 6 years is, some real good players.
Was a very, very young Jermaine Pennant floating around when you arrived?
No, he wasn't. He must have left just before I arrived, I think. Just thinking of some of the players that I've played with, there was Kelvin Wilson as a young boy coming through.
Kelvin Wilson got a very good career.
David McGoldrick just coming through as a young.
Yeah, Leon Best would have been around then as well.
Leon Best, there was Leon Best and David McGoldrick around the same time. Obviously McGoldrick's enjoying his football at Sheffield United, and obviously Republic of Ireland international as well. But yeah, Kelvin Wilson. But when I look back at when the likes of, I think when the takeover had gone through, or the new owner, so when Derek had left, and there was the likes of Kasky, and obviously he was on decent money at the time, and I'm sure everyone knows about that. But his football ability was unbelievable. He wasn't shy in telling you that as well. But yeah, some good talent. Andy Hughes, another good player.
He had a good career in football. A good career, didn't he? I mean, we had actually a lot of decent. When you look back, we had a lot of. There was quite a high churn, wasn't there? But a lot of players,
Yeah, some good players. Nick Fenton, yeah, really good player. Obviously, we spoke about Kevin, Nico, and Barra already. Stall up front, taking his Panenka penalties.
The guy behind us here, of course, Danny also had a couple of. I mean, he scored a lot of goals, didn't he? Particularly one of the seasons. He was on.
Yeah, he was a great player. Danny was a real good athlete. Looked after himself really well. Quick, strong, but he could play as well, and he was a real threat on his day as well. But yeah, so some great memories, and I look back on my when I first joined Notts as well when I was 19, and some of the younger players that we were all in the same position. So the likes of Paul Heffernan, Sol Dini, Michael Brough. We were all very, very similar ages, give or take a couple of years, and we'd often meet up on an evening and we'd go play snooker or something like that, and we kind of grew up together. Like those first few years for me at Notts was, mixing in with those lads, playing two-touch at the, Meadow Lane, but at the side of the ground, just playing two-touch for hours after training. We just loved it. We were living the dream at that point. So, some good lads.
Still turning out. He played for Notts. I played against Notts friendly. Started this pre-season for Colville Town, and he works in football in the community. So yeah, he's still active.
Oh, he works in football community at Notts, does he?
Yeah.
Is that under Richo?
I don't think Ian's there now.
Okay.
But Sol's been there a year, 18 months, and he plays in goal for Colville Town, who are, I think, Evo Stick or somewhere like that. Yeah.
But no, we used to have, me, Sol, Heifers.
He's back in Ireland, isn't he? He's back in Ireland. It's a local club in Ireland, I believe.
Yeah. I mean, he's probably one of the most talented natural goal scorers I've ever seen, Paul Heffernan. He wouldn't say boo to a goose, he was very, very quiet, but you gave him the ball in front of goal and you put your mortgage on him to score. He was a real good kid. But I think we used to go play snooker. I think is it Clifton?
Would you have played? Saul mentioned this. I think it was Carlton Top Spot.
Carlton, not Clifton. It was Carlton. Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, Top Spot Club on Carlton Hill Top. Yeah, you mentioned going there.
Yeah, we'd either go there or we'd go around to Bruffy's for some pasta or something in West Bridgeford. But yeah, there was a good crowd of us. Some good times.
As I say, you're an educated man, and it's not always easy when footballers finish to know what it is they want to do, how they go about doing it. But you are in education now, correct? Yeah, at a school and college.
Yeah,
Yorkshire.
Queen Ethelburgers College. Yeah. So yeah, I've been there 7 years. So when I was coming towards the back end of my career, I got a bad knee injury towards the end of my Grimsby career. Moved up, had 2 years at Macclesfield, and then eventually I ended up at Harrogate Town on loan, and I ended up finishing my career at Harrogate when they were semi-professional, so Conference North. Obviously the flying high at the moment. But yeah, so Harrogate is where I finished my career, and I think I was always kind of questioning what would I do, what's going to be the next stage in my career. Because being a professional footballer is you can't replace it. That buzz and that getting paid to do something that you love. You're not going to get that anywhere else. So I was kind of thinking, what am I going to do for the rest of my life? Started doing my coaching badges, just thinking that I'll probably walk into an academy coaching role or something like that, and it's going to pay the same money and they're going to be the same hours, and it just be a smooth transition. But I soon found out that that's not the case, and it's a big wide world out there, and you have to you have to be ready for it. So there was a little bit of a transition period where I was kind of twiddling my thumbs and scratching my head, which direction do I go in? I actually set up a soccer academy with another professional footballer at the time, John Worthington. We were both at Mansfield together, and we were in the car school just driving down, and he was studying to be a physio, and I was going through my coaching badges and things like that. And we set up a soccer academy, which was really successful actually for about 2 or 3 years. But I was always looking for that, striving for something a little bit more secure, and where I knew where I was going to be and when I was going to be there. I like a bit of stability. So an opportunity came up to coach in a school just as a football coach, which, I jumped at. The facilities are incredible. And yeah, I've been there ever since, been there for 7 years now. So, heading the football program up there, form tutor, you name it, kind of getting stuck into a bit of everything at the school. And I'm halfway through a degree as well. I'm currently studying. So I thought, what, I'm not getting any younger. Why not, give it a go? So I'm halfway through a professional broadcasting and writing degree through Staffordshire Uni, which is going really well. That's a 2-year degree, which will hopefully, set me up, and I can go in a few different directions, whether it be in the media, whether I transfer the skills over into education. So I've got a few different options, but yeah, it's been a good transition, and I'm very fortunate, to be in the position that I'm in now. But yeah, any advice to the youngsters out there is get your education in early, get it in quickly, because I can hold my hands up, and I probably did leave it a little bit too late. And I'm still going through the process of learning now at the age of 41. But yeah, it's never too late. So yeah, busy at the moment, but I'm enjoying it. It's really good.
Yeah, we've actually had quite a lot of the Notts County alumni going through that particular course, or not dissimilar media and communications degrees. Blair Adams, who was a guest on our show a month or so ago, he did that course. Ben Burgess, who was at Blackpool, spent a short time at Notts. He did that course, wrote a brilliant article, and he's in teaching as well in Lancashire.
He is, yeah. I remember reading about him. Yeah. I think there are obviously, that the PFA have set it up, and I remember having a conversation with Jason Lee about it. Before I started the course, just for some advice. I spoke to numerous other ex-players as well that have gone through the course, and it's the PFA heavily back it as well, which is a fantastic thing. And it's enjoyable content as well. It's something that I love. I've done a little bit of co-commentary over the last 2 or 3 years, so it kind of ties in nicely with that. So yeah, it's enjoying it. We'll hopefully can go from strength to strength with the media stuff.
Yeah, and as you've identified there as well, it's what I call a life skill, and it's very transferable as well. It isn't just, you don't have to become a journalist or a media pundit. A lot of the lessons and things that you will pick up from there certainly are transferable and commutable with teaching and those sorts of things. So I always class being able to communicate as a life skill.
Yeah, definitely. And I think as one, you start something and you often head off down another path, don't you? So what one door opens and it leads to something else. So yeah, so no, really enjoying it. It's busy but good. Yeah, really good.
I'm surprised you still need to work, because if you've had Stells looking after your finances for a few years now, I'd have thought
he needs to pull his finger out.
Accounts, and you could just work a couple of weeks a year.
Yeah. No, Stall's. I've stayed in touch with Stall ever since we finished playing, and obviously he's doing very well for himself as a financial advisor, and he's very kindly agrees to do my not my books, so to speak, but to make sure I'm not drowning too much. So yeah, no, he's doing well. But it's nice to stay in touch with former players as well, and everyone kind of goes off in different directions. A lot of people, obviously, like Barra, Kevin Nico, staying in the game. I think Fenners went down the physio route, and he's doing his physiotherapy. But yeah, it's some good lads, and yeah, some good times.
Whenever we play Grimsby home and away, you should be a shoo-in for some form of media duties for that one, shouldn't you? I mean, you've clocked up over probably the best part of 10 years at those two, haven't you? I would have thought.
Yeah, like I was saying earlier, Grimsby and Notts were my most productive years in terms of appearances. So yeah, it's like I say, I was probably most successful time of my career was probably at Grimsby in terms of reaching 2 finals, although we were defeated. But you know, what I learnt at Notts kind of made me the player that I was to be able to go on and do that. And then, you know, the knee injury kicked in at the end of my time at Grimsby, and that coincided with I think it was Mike Newell who kind of released me at the end of my Grimsby career. He promised me a contract, and then the contract was nowhere to be seen. And then it was a phone call to the late Keith Alexander, begging him to give me an opportunity, and he thankfully, you know, I'm grateful to this day for him doing that. Gave me a year to kind of get my knee back, you know, to some kind of working order, which I did, and then yeah, I ended up staying 2 years at Macclesfield. But yeah, forever grateful to Keith for giving that opportunity.
Sadly, Keith no longer with us, and of course, another one very close to Notts County people, Richard Butcher, of course, sadly passed on. You would have been a teammate of Richard as well, correct?
Yeah. So Keith passed away in my first year. God bless him. At Macclesfield, I think it was 2009, 2010 year. I actually remember it because we played away at Notts County. I think it was a Tuesday night or something, and I was I was on the bench for Macclesfield that night. Again, common theme. And unfortunately, it was that night that Keith passed away after the Notts County. It was that evening after the Notts County game. So really sad, but forever grateful to Keith. And yes, it was Richard Butcher, who was the fittest, nicest guy you could ever wish to meet. In terms of, he used to win all the races. You know, he used to eat all the right foods and look after himself. He was the ultimate professional. And sadly, he passed away in my second year as well. He had an unknown heart condition, and he sadly left us as well in the second year. So I was grateful for my time at Macclesfield. It's a great little family club. It was under the management of, when Keith passed away, it was it Gary Simpson? I think it was. Gary Simpson took charge.
Gary Simpson, not sure.
Gary was, so I think Gary, I think it was Gary, because Gary worked under Keith as his assistant at Lincoln, and he took him with him. I was there. So, but yeah, good to both great guys that obviously sadly missed.
But you've clearly managed a very successful transition from your footballing career into education, getting yourself qualified. I'm guessing, like a lot of people in football, you clearly, you know, you keep an eye out on Notts, but you must find it difficult that they are now, you know, a National League team along with Grimsby as well.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the conference national table, and there's some big clubs in there that shouldn't be there. On paper, they shouldn't be there, but they are there for one reason or another. They are there, whether it be mismanagement of finances, whether it be, you know, the wrong choice in managers and things like that, whether it be poor recruitment, for whatever reason, maybe a bit of bad luck in there as well. You know, Notts and Grimsby find themselves in the Conference National, and I was looking earlier at some of the clubs in there. You know, the likes of Stockport and Wrexham. You know, Torquay is still going to be in there as well, and it's going to be a real tough league. But I'm hoping now that Notts, under the new manager, you know, I've seen a couple of his interviews. I've watched a few of the games as well. He seems to be very proactive and kind of, you know, got some good ideas the way he wants to play, and he seems to get the players seem to be buying into it. And you know, obviously, looking forward to the new season, and I'm you know, hopefully Notts can have a good season. It's not going to be easy, but you know, they're, I mean, everyone says that they're a football league club, and that's where they should be. You look at the stadium, you look at the people, the fans, you know, the honest, hardworking people behind the scenes that, you know, that watch week in, week out, and hopefully they can do it for those people, because big clubs.
Well, we have a look at the fixtures, and hopefully we'll be able to get you back to Meadow Lane and or Blundell. Is it still Blundell Park?
Grimsby's Blundell Park, yeah.
For the Notts Grimsby games, which were of course sadly our National League. I can remember those two clubs playing in the Championship, second tier together.
Yeah, and it just shows like how much football's changed. But I'd like to think that Notts now have kind of, they've ridden the roller coaster and they're still on there, still fighting. And I'd like to think they're heading in the right direction now after what has been it's been a turbulent kind of 20 years, really. In terms of up and down, in terms of League Two, conference, financial. I think what they need now is stability with a manager. Whether a good manager in place for a period of time who can put his ideas across, and the finances behind the scene can hopefully carry that forward and support him with recruitment and things like that. And it won't be long before Notts are back in league football.
Yeah, I think the good thing as well at the minute is the club is being properly resourced and properly backed by the owners. Some clubs, when they have dropped out of the National League, Stockport would have gone through this, Torquay would have gone through this, I think Wrexham did, then basically no one's got enough money to run the club properly. Notts are absolutely in a position where the club is being backed appropriately, although clearly now Stockport are, Wrexham are, Hollywood money. And of course, one of the beneficiaries of this is a club that you spent a little bit of time at, Harrogate, isn't it? Which shows you if you can get the formula right, then irrespective of size and stature of club, promotion is achievable. And Sutton have kind of done that as well.
Yeah, and it's amazing. I mean, Harrogate, they've been on some journey over the last 3 years, from Conference North to League Two, where they more than held their own last year. And I'm sure they'll go from strength to strength. And I believe they've done that through not only, they've had a little bit of, finances to have a good go at it, but if you look at the core of the squad that played in the Conference National, it's the bulk of them is the same players, and all they've done is they've brought in a couple of bit of quality. I know John Stead was in there for the last couple of years, a little bit of experience and quality in certain areas, but ultimately the most important thing is that togetherness and that unity. And I'm sure and I'm hoping that the same can happen at Notts now, and they seem to have that momentum building. There's kind of a better feel about the place, from looking in from the outside. And hopefully that it can be they just missed out in the playoffs, in the season just gone, but hopefully they can keep building that momentum and and that togetherness. And you don't Harrogate have shown that you don't always have to spend fortunes to be able to success. Confidence, once you can breed confidence, it builds momentum, and who knows where it can take you.
Paul, thank you very much indeed for your time. Glad things are going very well for you at the moment. Good luck with getting the letters after the name. And we hope that we may be able to see you, Notts County versus Grimsby Town, at Meadow Lane later this season.
Fantastic. Thanks for having us on, Paul. Like I said, I'd love to get back down to Meadow Lane. It's been a while since I've been down there, but I'd love to. It's a great club, and I look back and I'm very grateful for the opportunity and some of the managers and some of the players and some of the fans that I got to meet, while I was there for my 6 years. So really grateful, and I'd love to get down to Meadow Lane and watch a game this season.
We will get the club's record goal scorer, Les Brad, who would have been floating around behind the scenes when you were there. He's still there, Les. So we will get that sorted, I'm sure. Paul, thank you very much indeed for joining us, and all the very best.
Thank you, Paul.